in the book of Lamentations, chapter 1. How deserted lies the city, once so full of people. How like a widow is she, who once was great among the nations. She who was queen among the provinces has now become a slave. Bitterly she weeps at night. Tears are upon her cheeks. Among all her lovers, there is none to comfort her. All her friends have betrayed her. They have become her enemies. After affliction and harsh labor, Judah has gone into exile. She dwells among the nations. She finds no resting place. All who pursue her have overtaken her in the midst of her distress. The roads to Zion mourn, for no one comes to her appointed feasts. All her gateways are desolate. Her priests groan, her maidens grieve, and she is in bitter anguish. Her foes have become her masters. Her enemies are at ease. The Lord has brought her grief because of her many sins. Her children have gone into exile, captive before the foe. All the splendor has departed from the daughter of Zion. Her princes are like deer that find no pasture. In weakness they have fled before the pursuer. In the days of her affliction and wandering, Jerusalem remembers all the treasures that were hers in days of old. When her people fell into enemy hands, there was no one to help her. Her enemies looked at her and laughed at her destruction. Jerusalem has sinned greatly, and so has become unclean. All who honored her despise her, for they have seen her nakedness. She herself groans and turns away. Her filthiness clung to her skirts. She did not consider her future. Her fall was astounding. There was none to comfort her. Look, O Lord, on my affliction, for the enemy has triumphed. The enemy laid hands on all her treasures. She saw pagan nations enter her sanctuary, those you had forbidden to enter your assembly. All her people groan as they search for bread. They barter their treasures for food to keep themselves alive. Look, O Lord, and consider, for I am despised. Is it nothing to you, all you who pass by? Look around and see. Is any suffering like my suffering that was inflicted on me, that the Lord brought on me in the day of his fierce anger? From on high he sent fire, sent it down into my bones. He spread a net for my feet and turned me back. He made me desolate, faint all day long. My sins have been bound into a yoke. By his hands they were woven together. They have come upon my neck, and the Lord has sapped my strength. He has handed me over to those I cannot withstand. The Lord has rejected all the warriors in my midst. He has summoned an army against me to crush my young men. In his winepress the Lord has trampled the virgin daughter of Judah. This is why I weep, and my eyes overflow with tears. No one is near to comfort me, no one to restore my spirit. My children are destitute because the enemy has prevailed. Zion stretches out her hands, but there is no one to comfort her. The Lord has decreed for Jacob that his neighbors become his foes. Jerusalem has become an unclean thing among them. The Lord is righteous, yet I rebelled against his command. Listen, all you peoples. Look upon my suffering. My young men and maidens have gone into exile. I called to my allies, but they betrayed me. My priests and my elders perished in the city while they searched for food to keep themselves alive. See, O Lord, how distressed I am. I am in torment within, and in my heart I am disturbed, for I have been most rebellious. Outside the sword bereaves, inside there is only death. People have heard my groaning, but there is no one to comfort me. All my enemies have heard of my distress. They rejoice at what you have done. May you bring the day you have announced, so they may become like me. Let all their wickedness come before you. Deal with them as you have dealt with me because of all my sins. My groans are many, and my heart is faint. There is a lot here. So here, listen to what the words of what Jeremiah is stating here. Listen to what he is stating here. Her foes have become her masters. Her enemies are at ease. The Lord has brought her grief because of her many sins. Her children have gone into exile, captive before the foe. So he's telling us about Israel and Judah had fallen away. They had stopped worshiping the Lord. They had stopped following the commandments. And so the consequences were to happen. And the Lord allowed for those to happen. So they kept on relying on all these nations, on these foreign gods, on these things that was not the good shepherd, did not free them to begin with, was not protecting them, was not providing for them. But they had reliance on themselves and on these things that they had made up, because those are the things that they can control. So listen to what he says. The Lord has brought her grief because of her many sins. Her children have gone into exile, captive before the foe. So the whole nation, because they continue to do these things, and the people who were in places of responsibility led the whole nation to their destruction. So take note of that, because that's point one. Also, he goes on to talk about this as well. And her enemy. He goes on to say, the Lord is righteous, yet I rebelled against his command. Listen, all you peoples, look upon my suffering. So that's going to be part of point two. Point one, let's go back. Jerusalem, Judah, Israel had got to a place where they were creating things and situations for themselves, anything that benefited themselves. So yes, they were becoming wicked. In wickedness lies conceitedness, lies greed, lies gluttony, lies things that you're not loving person, your hate lies within wickedness, which is all under sin. And so they continue to do these things, knowing that they had commandments, but they couldn't control the Lord. They could control these other things, though. These other things that they could make believe in their mind, rely on. Things that they created. Their own foreign objects, their own gods, their own rules. Utilizing what they're learning from the Lord, but twisting it into their own image. So there's a lot to look at here. Bringing past to present. Do things like this happen in society today? Yes. So we have to take a look at what things happen in our lives, in the community, and in a group of people, wherever that may be, where the guidance falls, and what has happened with the path to the goal to make something better, whether it be in our family, in our lives, in our community. Where do we get off and go astray? Well, think about it. Judah is a prime example of things that they decided to take and utilize for themselves. They started to be greedy. They started to not care for the poor, not care for the widow, not want someone to come in, a foreigner, an immigrant, someone who was not a part of the community already. And then to spread fear, to spread angst, to spread hatred because other people are different. They're not doing things how we do them, because how we do them is the only way. It is the only way. And we know that God has said this way, but when we do it our way with God's words and we twist it into what we want it to be, then that works best for us. In the end, it does not work best for us, because we're taking the good shepherd's word, we're taking the good shepherd and we're changing what his guidance is to try to best benefit how we believe we are going to benefit, it's going to turn out for us. We'll be more prosperous. We'll have more things. We'll have a bigger home. We'll have more power, more money, more things. And in the end, that leaves out everything that the Lord has commanded, which is under love. In the end, it becomes empty and hollow. So for point one, we have to look at what we are seeking, what others are seeking, and where the guidance is, as well as taking responsibility. Once we recognize that we have strayed off the path, once we recognize someone has strayed off the path, the thing to do is go to the Lord. Go to the Lord, pray to the Lord for guidance and wisdom. He can turn things around, whether it's for you or someone else. Before we go to point two, what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind when we read over this? How does it make you feel and what does it make you think?